everybody, this is Julie Bean with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to share with you tips for choosing the right show for you when you're selling your handmade jewelry. And this is part of our tips for selling your handmade jewelry video series. So when you're choosing a show, there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And there's a couple that are really general that will apply to every single show, and there's a couple that are more specific to each type of show. And so I'm going to first start with the broader ones, things you want to look at no matter what show you're considering. So first off, you're going to want to look at the cost. Every show is going to have a fee associated with it, and that's going to be, first off, the booth fee. And that's going to be what it costs to participate in that show, to get your space. And now some shows include the table and the chair and the tent if it's outside, and some do not. So you're going to want to look and see what's included with the booth fee. If you're just starting out, you might not have already bought a table, a chair, a tent, and all of that stuff. So it might be worth it to do a show that provides that for you. So it might have a little bit of a higher cost to do the show in terms of the booth fee, but it might actually save you some money if you're not prepared to buy all that stuff just yet. So just look at that. It'll be right there in the contract. The promoters are really upfront about what's included. Next, you're going to want to look at the time of the show. How many days is it? Is it just a morning? Is it a day? Is it 2? Is it 5? Do you like that span? Is that good for you? Does it work with your schedule? Finally, go ahead and do some research. How did you find out about this show? Did you find about it through their Instagram page, their Facebook page, their website? Do some real digging and see if you can figure out some more information about the show before you commit. So you're going to want to look at things like, how many years has the show been going on? Is it a brand new show? Has it been going on for 10 years? Does it tell you what their attendance levels are? Are there pictures on the website showing you past shows? And do you see full aisles? You want to see the full aisles. And then also, how many people participate in the show? Is it 10 vendors? Are there 100 vendors? Usually you can find a vendor list somewhere on their website as well. So again, look at the expenses, look at the time factor, and then see if you can figure out something more about the show, like how many years it's been going on and how many people attend the show and how many vendors there are. Next off, you're going to want to find a show that is the right fit for what you do specifically. There's a wide range of jewelry makers out there. Everyone does something different. You are unique in what you do, and you want to figure out where you have the best chance for success. So now we're going to talk a little bit about specific types of shows. And I have done all of these, some with success and some not so successful. And of course, there are exceptions to every rule. Everyone's gonna have a different experience, but I can provide you with a little bit of insight from the shows that I have done. So flea markets is one type of show that's really common. Every single town seems to have a flea market or 2 or 5. And I personally love flea markets. I shop them all the time. And so I'm gonna share with you my experience as both a shopper and a seller. So as a shopper, I go in with the mindset of, I want to find a treasure. I love everything vintage. I want to find fiesta ware. I want to find jadeite, old kitchen gadgets from the 50s. I am looking for a treasure. I'm looking to have a fun morning. Usually they're in the morning. And I'm not looking to spend a lot of money. I want to find my treasure for the day. And I think that's really common with a lot of people who are going to flea markets. They're just out to have fun. They're not looking for anything specific. Or if they do, it's more of like those generalities, like something vintage, kitchen-y, that type of thing. And I don't know how much they're looking for artisan handmade jewelry at a lot of flea markets. And so as a seller of handmade jewelry, I have not done really well at flea markets. And I think it's just because people aren't in that mindset of, wow, look at this piece. It took someone 4 hours to make and they're selling it for $85. And it's a pair of earrings. It's not really the same mindset for them. But I've seen a lot of successful jewelry makers at flea markets, and usually they have things which are a little bit more simple and a lower price point. So let's say you make earrings and you make cute little earrings with charms or necklaces with pendants, and you sell them for $10 or $12 or $15. And they're those things that people might walk past and just go, wow, I love that. And it's not a lot of money, so they don't really have to think about it, and that becomes their treasure for the day. So that's my experience with flea markets. You can do well at them, but I think it's more, just think about who the customer is, who's walking by, what price point is your jewelry at. You have just a ton of jewelry that's at a little bit lower price point, it might do really well at a flea market. The next type of show is going to be like an artisan craft fair art fair, juried or not juried. So when you see the word juried or curated, it basically means that not everybody who applies gets in. You put in your application, there's usually a cutoff deadline, and then the promoter chooses who they want to be in the show. And it's not always about necessarily you specifically. I mean, it is, they do want to have a certain look for their show, but a lot of times it's about having a well-balanced show. So let's say they have 100 different spots available. They might allocate 10 spots for jewelry makers, 10 for pottery makers, 10 for handmade jewelry, and so on. So they're trying to have a well-balanced show. And that's actually really good for you because you don't want to go to a show with 100 vendors and 75 of them be jewelry makers. That's just too much. So I do the best personally with my handmade jewelry at art fairs, craft fairs, things like that, because the shopper, again, this is talking about who is the customer, who's shopping. The shopper is looking for handmade items. They're in that mindset that these are artisan pieces. They appreciate that, and they're willing to spend that money on an artisan piece. So that's where I personally do the best. Again, everyone has a different experience though, so please do keep that in mind, but I'm sharing my tips for it. Now, another type of selling venue is a gift fair. Now, these are popular around the holidays, and these are great if you have giftable items. Now, jewelry in general is very giftable, so that's great right there. But let's say you make bracelets with a charm that says sister on it, or a mother's bracelet, or you make something that, you know, might be a really good gift item as beautifully packaged. You really promote your packaging. A gift market can be a really good option for you. And I've seen a lot of really great success at gift markets. A lot of people do a lot of their sales for the year at holiday gift markets. So this is something to really keep in mind because, again, who's the customer? The customer is going there to spend money. They usually have a list of who they want to buy for, about how much they want to spend per person. And so this is great because they're in that mindset to shop. So holiday gift markets are really great. Other types of shows can be like a real niche show, like a comic book show or a pop-up shop at a yoga studio. So let's say you make yoga jewelry and your local yoga studio is doing a pop-up fair. That's a great opportunity for you because, again, it's a customer who is wanting what you have to sell. So that's a good option as well. So look beyond just craft markets and gift markets and think about what do you sell that might fit into a different category and see if you can find something very specific. Now, there are a couple other types of shows to consider. Art walks are out there. If you make something really artsy, it's a very eclectic mix. That could be something. I've had mixed results with art walks, but that is something. Farmers markets sometimes have venues for people to sell. If you do a farmer's market, I would suggest going to it first and just seeing what other artisans are there. You can also see how many times people go there to see if they are successful. For instance, where I'm from in Los Angeles, before we moved, there was a Sunday farmer's market and the same craft vendors were there week after week after week. So I literally saw them for 30 weeks in a row. Well, that tells me that they're making enough money to make it worth their while to come back. So you can go ahead and check out what those people do and see if it's similar to what you do, similar price points. And that's a really good clue to see if you might do really well there. Finally, there's wholesale shows. Wholesale shows are entirely different. I think we're going to devote a whole episode of this series to wholesale shows. Wholesale shows are not available to the public. So you as a vendor can go in there, but you're not going to sell directly to a person who's going to wear and love your jewelry. You're going to sell it to a shop who's going to then resell it. And wholesale shows usually cost a little bit more money to do. They're usually longer in duration, and you're talking about quantity because you're going to be selling at a discount. So that's a kind of a whole different subject that we'll go into another time, but I did want to mention that as an option. So those are really the types of shows out there. Think about what you make. Think about what your price point is. Think about who your customer is. Where might your customer shop? And take all those things into consideration when you choose the show for you. And then we're going to have another episode coming up, which will help you prep for your first show. Like, what do you need to do for your display? What do you need to bring? All of those great tips. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it helped you a little bit in choosing the right show for you. As always, post questions in the comments. And if you have tips and you've been doing shows, I would love to hear them. I know everyone who is watching this would love to hear them. So please share those tips for your experiences doing shows as well.